Good morning everybody, welcome back to cilinixfxcapital, or welcome to the channel as well if you're new, and welcome to this new video. On SUI, wanted to do a full update. I try to keep you all updated on SUI quite often, as most of you probably know. So in this video I also wanted to talk briefly about the fundamentals here and talk about the technicals, because especially the technicals for SUI, in my opinion at least, are quite interesting. I mean, you can see right here, just to talk about it briefly here. Before we go into depth, you can see that we had some good balance the second week of May right here, between 3.8, 3.82, and then to the upside at like 4.05, 4.1. And that level, we did break down below that, right? So Thursday the 15th, last Thursday we broke down below that. And then again yesterday, and right now it seems like SUI is kind of, and we also dropped down below the 7-day rolling VWAP, which is not a great sign. So at this point of time, ultimately, especially if we look at the higher time frames, which we'll do in a moment after we've gone over the fundamentals briefly. If you look at the higher time frames, I think you have to be bullish on SUI still, but there are some things I'd like to see very quickly, right? Because ultimately, if we want continuation, right? So if we want a continuation into 4.5, 4.6, which in the higher time frames is the next resistance level. What you want to see is that SUI is going to be able to not only hold 3.65, because I would say 3.65 is really the line in the sand we have to hold to still have a chance to rally up higher. But preferably, you'd also want to see the price on top of the 7-day rolling VWAP, and you want to see the price in a balance near the highs, right? Instead of a balance below the balance near the highs, if that makes sense. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. First of all, one of the things that I like a lot about SUI are the fundamentals. Fundamentals for SUI have been incredibly strong, and you can also see that right now. The TVL is still near all-time highs. The DEX trading volume is still great. Those Satis rewards are amazing. So fundamentally, I definitely still see a reason for SUI to continue. If we look at the broader crypto markets, I would also say there still is plenty of reasons to rally up higher for SUI. Bitcoin on the higher time frames is still bullish, and on the lower time frames it shifts. But at this point of time, Bitcoin on the lower time frames is bullish as well, which matters a lot for SUI, right? Because SUI is correlated to Bitcoin in the last 3 days for about 76%, quite a lot. But alright, so ultimately fundamentals still good, and like I said, on the higher time frames, SUI is fine as well. And I would even go as far as saying that, you know, if we get a spike down into that level at 3.5, that's also fine. There we have the 382 fib, and there we have the 30-day rolling VWAP. But then we do have to get a very strong reaction there, right? So if we drop down to 3.5 and we get a weak reaction, that's the end of it. Because ultimately the main support level I'm looking at is the value area high we had at the end of April. And that's 3.65, which, by the way, which also counts for something, is also quite strong, as you can see on the higher time frames just in general, outside of there being a value area high as well. So yeah, ultimately at this point of time, I would still say it's most likely that SUI is going to be able to hold that. Now, hopefully not, but maybe with a spike like this, right? And then a rapid, like we need to see a rapid recovery. But ultimately, I'd say it's still most likely we'll hold the balance here, that we will get back into balance to the upside, and that we'll get continuation. All right. I would say, looking at all the factors, so both the fundamentals and what we've seen so far from the technicals of SUI, I would say this is most likely. However, how would I trade this? I don't know. Maybe a buy order at 3.5 for the chance that we do spike down there. I would not buy SUI right now. I just don't think there's enough confirmation for this, even though it is most likely, right? And if you buy right now, like what's the potential reward? Getting back to the highs right here is a 10% move. What's a potential risk? Would be a drop into that level right here, also a 10% move. So the risk reward at this point of time for SUI just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would wait, if you want to buy SUI, I would wait for either a deep pullback into 3.5 to take the risk there, and hope for a rapid recovery, or I would wait for our main resistance level at 4.05 to break with volume and enter then, and then you can also use a tighter stop loss. But those are my thoughts. That's what I think you need to know for now. Hopefully it helps, but for now, thank you for watching. Have a great Sunday, and bye.